Train the muscles, not the joints.
Welcome back to Natural Galant Bodybuilding. Mountain. And today I'm going to talk to you about the stretch versus contraction of muscular development and how stretch is good, but at the same time, an over fascination with the stretch around a muscle can hold you back in some cases. So what I see right now is a great learning curve, and I'm seeing a lot of people understanding that constant tension under stretch is a great way to facilitate muscular growth. And I had a great question in the comments about this. One guy asked me, is the stretch or the contraction more important? And if the stretch is more important, should I end the workout with stretching exercises or should I begin them with stretching exercises for a given body part? So my answer to that is the pump and stretch principle, which is contractions first. And once you are able to contract that muscle and pump it up as much as possible, then what you do is you stretch it out, and that helps stretch the fascia and also helps facilitate a greater amount of muscular breakdown and development. But it's not, again, this is not a set rule. This is just a way in order for you to take advantage of that elastic energy in the muscle to keep the reps going, right? Because one thing you may find is that when your muscle is fatigued, it's really hard to contract it. It's almost like last little bit of contraction can be very tough. You might notice this in tricep training. So I find it's great to start with the contraction type movements where you can really extend and squeeze. Then you move into the stretching movements, which will help extend that set because you're taking advantage of the elastic energy and you're stretching out that pumped muscle and getting a 2-for-1 for that, right? Two for the price of one. And one thing I like about stretching the triceps out like that is that you could extend the set by taking advantage of the elasticity of the muscle when it's in a stretch position. And therefore you can actually get some extra reps and take that muscle to a deeper level of failure. But one thing I've noticed is, like anything, there's always trends on the internet, right? And what happens is that people will say, oh yeah, constant tension under stretch. And then that becomes one of those cardinal rules where if you're not stretching the muscle, then it's not effective. Or people start to think that the exercise is not effective if you're not stretching. And I would say nothing could be further from the truth, because there are some cases when you are not getting as much muscular activation from stretching further in a particular muscle. One of the places I notice this is in the tricep press down. When I just bend the elbow to about 90 degrees and then straighten, I get just pure triceps. I feel like my triceps come into play. But once I start to bend more and then bring the elbows forward a little bit in order to do so, I start to bring in the long head of the triceps, but also a bit of rotator cuff. There's nothing wrong with that, but one could also say that if I intend on isolating the triceps alone, I might not want to bring the elbows forward or bend the elbows beyond the capacity in which I feel the tension on the muscle belly of the tricep. Because this is the other thing. Sometimes people think, oh, if I stretch more, I'm getting more stretch on the actual muscle belly. But a lot of times what happens is the stress just transfers from the tricep right into the elbow once you bend past a certain point. And that's not necessarily healthy. And that's why you see a lot of guys walking around with elbow sleeves bench pressing. It's because they're overextending or overbending their elbows during certain tricep movements. So as you can see, sometimes heavy partials can apply to isolations. I mean, you have to be careful, of course, if you have a sensitive area or a certain joint like a shoulder or something that's not feeling good doing moderate weight, you definitely don't want to be pushing that into the heavy weights. But you know, you could do a heavy partial with a lateral raise just by doing little partials like this. I mean, these are all valid techniques. You just want to make sure you're paying attention to the body to make sure you're not injuring it, right? But yeah, heavy tricep press down is totally different than full range or fuller range tricep press down. When I'm doing super heavy and I'm just trying to bend the elbow to where it feels right and then straighten as much as I can, not all the way, but I straighten, that's where I feel the sweet spot of the tricep. And that's also exacerbated because I broke this arm when I was only 9 years old and it healed wrong. So it doesn't bend more than this. So this is the sweet spot for my tricep where it might be a little bit more of a bend. But again, you have to take in your own individual history, right? That's really the point of this channel. So that's why it's very important for you not to listen blindly to what people say, but try what they're saying, try what they're suggesting, and then see how it applies to you and what results you get and how you feel, right? But yeah, so I did a few sets of really heavy that felt good. I haven't done that in a long time, and challenged certain parts of the muscle. And then I finished it off with some lighter, fuller range movements. So valid technique, start with partial, move into fuller, almost a pump and stretch principle with an isolation movement. So you're almost applying the pump and stretch there. Mountain. Hey, how are you?
Yes.
But getting back to my point, the thing is that you can get a great amount of tricep work without getting an extreme stretch. And sometimes you might get better development in the triceps from not stretching too much. And then in other exercises, maybe the stretch is ideal. So you want to use the first and foremost principle, which is your awareness, and say, where am I feeling this tension? And adjust the range of motion based on that. Not just say stretch is a stretch is a stretch, because it's not always the case. I've found that it isn't always effective. Sometimes in your effort to stretch a muscle group, you might start bringing in other muscle groups in order to compensate, and then you start to lose that isolation. Another example of this was when my brother was doing leg presses. Back in the day, he'd be doing really short range of motion leg presses, but he would take the set into an extreme amount of failure. So his legs felt like they were on fire. And then after, for the stretch, he would do some front squats at about 90 degrees at the knee or so, but that would stretch the quads enough, and his quads would just blow up from this. So a Puritan on the leg press would say, no, you should be going all the way down in order to get a better stretch in your quads. But the truth is that he wasn't feeling a better stretch when he was going down lower, not in his quads anyway. He was feeling the stretch in his hamstrings and his ass, but not his quads. And he found that perfect sweet spot to make sure that his quads were getting all of the workload. And that's really what you want to think about, is how do I put the workload on the muscles that I want to hit? And that is the secret to growing muscle, especially in some of those stubborn areas. So don't get too attached to stretch at any cost. It's a matter of tension. Where's the tension? That's what will give you the results. It isn't about just stretching under constant tension, as much as that's a great principle to incorporate from time to time. So yeah, I hope this helps you out in your training, helps you find your way and what's perfect for you. If you need to get a hold of me, just go to naturalgalantbodybuilding.com, and thanks to the page supporters, and take care for now. Mountain. Mountain.